Jeremiah 23 and HOODS. We're going to be listening in on a tape, and the name of it is called End of the Road of How Money Became Worthless. Gold Financial Crisis, NDEVIR documentary. So look them up. So I'm just going to play what their opinion is about.
Been skewing the figures in their reports to make it seem as if inflation is much lower than it really is. There's this curious
Talking about inflation,
which most people don't understand, between core inflation and headline inflation. The core inflation is the basic 2% target, which doesn't matter, and the headline inflation is once you include all such of things like energy prices and sudden tax rises and the rest.
Well, the inflation rate is skewed. They use all kinds of contrivances to make the inflation rate look lower than what it really is. If the U.S. government were using the same CPI model that they did when President Carter was in the White House in the late 1970s, the inflation rate today in the United States would be 9 or 10%. That's how badly the currency is being debased. Now, the reason why they do that is there are a lot of inflation-adjusted responsibilities that the U.S. government has to pay out money to, for example, people on the Social Security system on an inflation-adjusted basis. If they keep the inflation rate low, according to their own statistic, that means they're paying out less. That means the government budget deficit is less.
A thriving metropolis.
And then you keep that with inflation. So if inflation, let's say, for example, if you were in Nevada and you were getting a partial disability, I have friends that have those. They get $800. But now, since the housing has changed, the rent, landlords double the same rent from $650 with 30-day notices to $1,200, $1,150 to be exact. Now, that is a big jump. Thus, the inflation with housing in this sense of rentals leaped through the sky, and there was no way they could have, through their little adjustment raise of $25, $40, $50, whatever, would have kept up with the real inflation dealing with rentals in the housing market. And what is it if it doubles? What would be the inflation rate? What are you thinking? I give you the last word on it. Let's go back to the tape, but that's just something to put in your arsenal while you work with collective groups to make investments in real estate ownership with your groups, for your groups, own survival, if you just be real with it.
Toledo is one of the world's greatest glass processing centers. In Akron, the state's fifth largest city, that story deals primarily with rubber. Akron is the rubber manufacturing capital of the nation and the world. Her very name is synonymous with rubber.
In a global economy where currencies are measured only against each other, countries are able to artificially lower the value of their own currency, making their industries more competitive. A country with a weak currency can make products cheaper, causing entire industrial centers to move overseas. This effect has been seen countless times in cities around the world, some of which still haven't recovered from the loss of their industrial base.
I think the guy on the street he's kind of frustrated. They go, gosh, I went to college, I don't have a job, I can't get a job, I spent all this money, I've got student loans, it's costing me more to live. The Fed is telling me there's no inflation, yet I go to the store and I see the price of milk going up, eggs, meat. I pull into a gas station, it's costing me more for gas. They don't really understand how all this affects them on a personal level. And that's why I think they're frustrated, because there isn't an educational system that explains that, look, when you print money, when you have nothing backing it, and when you debase it, you have all the side effects that you see. Higher inflation costs, corruption, cronyism, all the things that have been in headlines that we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years.
The protest movements are an interesting phenomenon. A lot
So when we look at raises going here, but rents going up there, and your jobs are not keeping up with them. So you see, with the raising of rents or home ownership on mortgages, because you still are dealing with the third-party banks, and those banks are going to make their money financing. But then there's a certain alignment you have to do. So collective groups in the hoods, I suggest that you begin to look at foreclosure properties, tax lien sales. Put your little money together, man, little homies, and begin to invest in real estate. That way you don't get caught with hands dirty and destroy your life. And you won't enjoy your grandkids or your kids. You know, they'll take your life, bro, or doing anything but what? Render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. You don't have enough weapons to even begin to talk negotiations. So bottom line is, you know, that's something you want to think about, man, because when the last time you shopped, I seen ground beef at Walmart go from $11 to $21 the same pack. And that's facts. And I know you've seen it. And the bottom line, right, when they print money, then your money, you need to stop killing over that stuff. Your money has lost its value. So if it lost, you lost 5 times, then get 5 more partners and double back. You see, so you need a collective group to be able to pull things off together, other than buy a kilo of cocaine. You know what I'm saying? That's going to destroy all of you. But you can do investments.
Unfortunately, people are demonstrating against the crisis, the economic crisis, and yet at the same time they're demanding more welfare, demanding more medical benefits, they're demanding more state control and regulation of their lives, they're demanding more money being created and pumped into the society. They don't realize that those are the very things that have brought them onto the street in the first place, in their anger. While the person on the street is struggling to get by, we're told that what we're experiencing is a typical recession. Why then does this current crisis feel different to previous economic recessions?
This is far from typical. I think this is the end game. I think what we're experiencing now are the pains of the 40-year experiment in fiat currency coming to an end, and it is an absolute failure, not only for America, but for the entire world.
Up until 2008, we've been borrowing more and more money to maintain our standard of living. Are we now at the point where we're maxed out and cannot take on any more new debt? What we're seeing today is deleveraging at all levels of society. I mean, consumers are maxed out. Each succession that we had in the economy, when we went through this boom and bust period, we'd go through a bust, they would reinflate again, the economy would start up again, but we kept piling on levels of debt. And finally, we reached the point where you just can't pile any more debt. Banks are no longer willing to give out credit so freely, and many people are more concerned with paying off existing debt as opposed to taking on new debt. While this is prudent, sensible behavior, it's also a serious threat to the global economy. Having set itself up as a giant Ponzi scheme, the global economy is reliant on more and larger debt being issued to keep itself functioning.
If you try to just live within your means and get by with just the amount of dollars that we have today, paying the interest on them collapses the currency supply. And so we continually have to borrow more units of currency into existence every month than we extinguish by paying off debt. The system as it's been presently structured is that they have to continue expanding the money supply, otherwise the system is going to die. Politicians and pundits talk about living within our means and paying down the debt. You can't do that without collapsing the entire economy. We
this black hole. All the politicians are in a situation where if they don't come to the rescue, we could just have an overnight shutdown, which they can't ever imagine happening while they're in power. So there's always this wish to move it on and, as the expression, kick the can down the road, which is really what we're doing.
But the problem is we've run out of road. There is no place to kick the can anymore. We've got to deal with the can, and it's not simply a can, because every time we kicked it down the road, unfortunately, it got bigger. So now it's an enormous can, and it's going to crush us.
While the financial crisis of 2008 may have been the first death throes of the Ponzi scheme, governments around the world weren't about to sit back and let it fail. So they delayed the inevitable collapse, pushing it down the road by bailing out struggling financial institutions, buying toxic mortgages, and taking on debt on behalf of its citizens.
2009, 2010, what happened was the crisis was papered over through bailouts, guarantees, money printing, expansion of the money supply, etc. And governments can do that. I mean, don't underestimate the ability of governments to dictate results in the short run. But in the long run, none of the problems are solved. The bad debts are still there. The banks are still insolvent. The banks are not lending. The economy's not growing. So we haven't really solved anything.
Now let's say, go back. The banks are not lending. So when you look at the current thing going down, we see the anaconda, especially dealing with investors that buy properties that are rentals. And like the move that was in Las Vegas with the disabled SSI people that lived in that complex, most of them moved from 650 in 30 days to 1,200 or 1150, excuse me. That jump in 30 days notice is quite a bit of tactic from the private market. So they're in it to survive. He got to get his money back. The market value's gone up because of the developers buying property in the area. When you see lofts coming in and suburban style coffee shops, everything's going up. When you see the developers, you better believe your rent is at threat. Why is that? Because they build and they charge a new price, and the comps that they use for one place, they can use for another by square footage and by bedrooms. Okay? So what we have to do is look at what happened. The banks told the homeowners, we need our money, and we're not going to wait on the what? The states to distribute the money. So if the government gave the money for the rental assistance, let's go there, and for people with mortgages, but they didn't get the money, then you get to put the people out and double the rent for many property managers, such as what happened over there. When we become that ruthless and cutthroat after rewarding so-called we're in this together, ground beef jumping up from, again, $13 at Walmart to the same pack I saw at $21, we're getting cows. That's what they mean by we're in this together, COVID-19. And we're still in a crisis dealing with COVID-19. We still have not finished. The second surge is going through, the Delta's going everywhere. And piranhas are trying to get what they can for themselves. Individual groups for their survival because they know about inflation. And in competition with others, there is no family or United States, as it were. We're in this, but we're not in this together. Not dealing with money. So money is a whole different subject. When you talk about money, you're talking about free market, private individuals having the freedom to screw whoever they decide they want to get. Now, if they do business fairly and right, that's one thing. But when you see we're in a crisis and people going up who already got billions in the bank, who we made rich buying their products, raising their products on us with no explanation. That's just everybody putting their crabs trying to crawl out of the barrel. Many could kept their prices low, but they wanted to raise them and take advantage of COVID-19, of the situation dealing with, we're in a crisis, old crisis. No, these cats don't make a lot of money, a lot of people, and they're just making more money in their greed. And instead of giving back like the tree, they take more. So if that's what a society is built on, crabs crawling out of a barrel, said Dale Carnegie, I guess you won't last. Not for the long haul, because every society that was greedy, go ask Alexander the Great. Anything can stop you at some point, and with taking on this kind of debt, what we suggest, collective groups in the hoods, whoever you are, begin to invest in the right things, brother. All the consumption and the ignorance that God hates, and I mean ignorant of not what to do. You know what I'm saying? Having the light and the knowledge for you and your grandkids. Start thinking tribe, bro. You know, you just gonna lay down and let the devil wipe all of us out with the ignorant mentality. So, as far as money go in hoods, better get it together, brothers. As far as you got money, invest in what's right and keep your hands off that dope, man. That's what we say.
Buying their way out of these crises by creating money out of nothing and flooding it into the economy and diluting the purchasing power. They're not really solving the problem. What they're doing is pushing it off a little bit into the future and making it worse.
Now, do we keep going down this road? Do we print more money? I mean, the Fed balance sheet went from 800 billion to 3 trillion. Should it now go to 6 trillion? We had an $800 billion stimulus. Should we now have a $2 trillion stimulus? I mean, in theory, you could, but this is where people could lose faith entirely in the currency. The currency could collapse.
The Federal Reserve's money printing exercises may help prop up the economy in the
One
short
more
term.
collapse, man.
But what are the consequences of money printing on such a large scale?
I think you're going to see that they're in rapid decline in the value of the dollar in a matter of days, whether it's 20%, 30%, 40%. A lot of people have been buying the dollar as a safe haven. You know, when they find out that there's no safety there, in fact, they need a safe haven from the dollar. I mean, right now the dollar is benefiting from the fear trade. But what if the fear trade is afraid of the dollar?
Aside from causing an enormous amount of inflation, the Federal Reserve's reckless money printing exercises also run the very real risk of creating a worldwide loss of confidence in the U.S. dollar.
I think you're trying.
So, throwing money up in a club, it has its place now, but can you see how foolish later on that kind of foolishness in your house loses half its value? Look, man, assets, bro. Assets, you know, where's the gold? Where you think it is. That's what's backing up those banks worldwide, is those assets. So whatever you can get, whether it's real estate, minerals, you know, farms, whatever you can do, buy housing complex. I don't know where y'all brothers at, but in the hoods, put your money in something legit, man. Because them dollars in your pocket, we can prophesy to you over the next 10 years, brother. Come on, man. They gonna lose a lot of value. Be smart, bro. Long haul.
Highly likely, but it'll be very difficult to know exactly what will cause it and when. I think it'll be something unforeseen. It could be a natural disaster. It could be a political shock. It could be just a general loss of confidence.
It could be something as simple as a treasury auction that goes bad, there's no buyers, and all of a sudden the interest rate starts to go up. Then the financial players, the big hedge funds, start to react to it, dumping dollars. Then all of a sudden you have foreign central banks that begin dumping dollars, get me out. And when that happens, just like that.
At some point, just like all Ponzi schemes, the participants wake up to the con.
Like the
they
ones
don't want
we
to
are.
participate anymore, and the whole thing implodes.
1782.
What we're looking at so far, man, again, Joseph was prepared from a biblical standpoint, a history standpoint, for those that don't believe in the Bible. Joseph, Abraham's son, prepared. And when he prepared, he paid provision for his homies they ate. So make sure you make your moves right, man. Be led by the Spirit of God. Ask God, which way do I go, Lord? Do we go as a group? You deserve, brother, to survive. These doing the room proper.
2,000 years ago to the human effort equation that maintains stability. How much effort does it take?
Gold is financial insurance. And the thing about it is you own it because you want to be protected. And, you just have to have it if you want to have or sleep at night, because there's nothing else. If some catastrophic event happens, and we've seen them, how are you going to be protected?
The current financial system may be dying, but where there is chaos, there is also opportunity. As the old model falls apart, the door may be opened for great prosperity.
It's clearly not the end of the world. I mean, it's probably not even the end of America. For many countries, this is going to be the beginning of an economic boom, a giant burden being lifted off their shoulders, where the world no longer has to loan trillions of dollars to Americans so that we can continue to consume what we don't produce. When this comes to an end, the world will benefit. So it is not something that we should fear. We should embrace it as a world.
This is the greatest wealth transfer in history. If we have a global currency crisis, then you're going to see a greater wealth transfer than has ever happened in all of history. It's all going to happen at once. Therefore, it's the greatest opportunity.
We have millions of people now taking an interest in what is money, the question of what is money, what should it be? And they're learning, especially a lot of young people. The sun will rise tomorrow, as it has 1,000,000 times before. Commuters will wake up and travel to their offices to begin the day's work. Farmers will tend to their crops, and construction workers will build new infrastructure. But will the world they live in still be the same? In 2008, the world was given a wake-up call. The biggest financial crash in human history was delayed by the same poor decisions that brought it about in the first place. What that massive bailout bought us was not a solution, but merely time. Time for the people responsible to wring the last few dollars out of a dying system. But also, for those able to see the cliff edge approaching, time to protect themselves and their families from the imminent plunge. And in the end, that time may prove to be the most valuable commodity of all.
There are these brief moments in history where the safe haven asset for the last 5,000 years simultaneously becomes the asset class that has the greatest single potential gains in purchasing power. We're in one of these cycles right now where money is the best investment. Get out of currency, buy money, and you're probably going to be able to buy a whole lot more stuff later. But the best thing that people can do of all is really to take on their own responsibility for getting financially educated. This is the most important thing. Don't let the banks and the brokerage houses and other people guide all of your decisions. Find out what's going on for yourself. Empower yourself.
So that's where we stand, And over the next 10 years, I just continue to encourage collective groups. Again, you could start on whatever levels it is about helping each other pay down debt. There you go, right there. So if we do that, and we pay down the debt, we pay them down like we're supposed to, we should be able to have a soft landing. I'm going to conclude it Let me hear what he got to say.
Pay down debts and raise your FICO scores, increase your buying power, and then making solid investments, man, whatever it may take. Again, you have all these different avenues that you, as a group, if one could put 1,000 in flight, two could put 10,000 in flight, with God on your side. So when you begin to really seriously look and put your pennies together, cut out, you can invest off of just cutting out fast foods, all of it, you know, and use that money to buy some kind of ownership or asset to buffet what's coming down the road, because we're already, some say, at 10% real inflation rate. So that means your dollar is losing its buying power, man. So if that's the case, just getting more money, I don't know if that's the answer, but doing more investments, at least you guys can help each other and feed your kids in hard times. Hope something we said helped. Jeremiah 23:4.